shot the kitchen board. I brought a couple of pictures in. So this one, that one I did on Monday with Malvern. And it was a painting competition, and I won a prize. Best urban scene.
Best what one?
Urban scene.
Urban,
Urban
brilliant.
scene, yeah.
That's great.
100 quid.
Wow.
That's all the practice that you had on my round building.
That's it, yeah.
That's what it was.
See,
Give
this
them
one
the
brought-
credit.
I brought this one just because it's going to a gallery.
That's
and we're dropping
lovely.
it. And this one is, and also it's skies.
Yeah.
Skies is
Oh,
nice.
beautiful.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Joyful.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
The sky's amazing.
I would have that on my board.
That's how you do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
That's
I
lovely.
don't know, it may have sold. I got an email saying can I bring another one. So she may have sold already.
That's a
Brilliant.
lovely picture, isn't it?
So I brought that up this afternoon.
Yeah.
Does.
So oils. I've got, this is like just all the ordinary canvas that you normally stretch over a stretcher, but I've just got a roll of it. So if anybody wants a bit of this, I've got this lump here, but I haven't got, I need somebody to have some scissors or a knife or something, because I think I left my knife at home.
Might be
Well,
something I think there are.
There might be something, otherwise I can probably tear it. Might rip. But I just used, so I picked the canvas because sometimes it's got a bit of a texture, and sometimes it's easier to soften out the brush marks on canvas. The painting of Malvern I did on a bit of board, which is nice for sharp edges, but it's harder to blend out the brush marks in the sky and things like that. So I thought I'd pick canvas for today. So the way I tend to start, I mean, I generally do my drawing with paint. So I would just have a little bit of very thin paint and just kind of sketch out perhaps the shapes of the clouds that I might want to. So these are oil paints, but these are water soluble oil paints, called mixable oil paints. So there's really two kinds of oil paints. And these I tend to use for teaching, and if I'm painting indoors, whereas if I'm painting my studio or paint outdoors, I use the ordinary ones. So the thing about these is you can wash your brushes in water and bit soap and water. You can thin the paint a little bit with water if you want to, so you haven't got to worry about solvents with these ones. And if you want to try these out, I've got a set there that I've got given, so we can use those, try those out, and yeah, go with these. So yeah, I would either sketch out with thin paint, and I find it sort of dries fairly quickly, as long as you haven't got it too wet. Or you could use a pencil, and I tend to use the pastel pencils, just to sketch out some shapes. It's just easier to wipe them out, or I can wash them out with a little bit of water. Whereas the graphite can be difficult to remove from canvas. So I tend to prefer these pastel pencils. Again, I've got a couple of those if you want to try those. I think the thing with skies and clouds is quite often you find that the blues, if it's a blue sky, it will be stronger sort of high up. And then as you're coming down, these bits in between the clouds here, it's a little bit lighter and not quite as blue, perhaps a little bit more pinky yellow, something like that. So it's something to have a look at when you're outside, just look at how intense blue it is. And we've got blue sky day today, good day to try, couldn't have done it a week or two ago. But you'll find it's usually a more intense colour further up. So that's just something to look at for that bit. In terms of, painting in oils, if you're painting over a couple of weeks, you could paint a sky, a blue sky, let it dry, and then paint the clouds on top. That'd be one way of working, and that's absolutely fine. So it just depends how long you're intending to take over your painting. Oil paints stay wet for a long time, so you've got a lot of working time. You can blend the colours and push the paint around. in terms, when you've got wet paint down, it's harder then to put more wet paint over the top because it will pick up the colour underneath. So it's just something to be aware of. And you know, when I was painting this painting, for instance, it's quite hard getting the tell up these darker lines over wet paint and things like that, or lighter bits over darker bits. So that can be a bit tricky. If you know, once it's wet, I'm getting a delivery here. Okay, brushes. So the paint itself, I might just thin it the tiniest bit, but I don't really thin it. Once I've got the you know, something sketched out, I tend to paint with the paint reasonably thick, and then I'll work it in. So where the highlights are going to go, I'm going to kind of put some. So you've either got a choice of painting the blue either side of the cloud, and then the grey, and then painting the light in, the white in, or the white highlights, or you can paint the highlights first. And I tend to alternate between the two really. And I'm thinking perhaps I prefer to get the highlights in first. So that's what I'm doing here. So you can see and this canvas it's a fairly rough texture. It's not the finest of canvas, so it will use a fair bit of paint. So just sort of be aware of that. This bit I've actually mixed a little bit of yellow in as well, just to warm it up a little bit, warm the white up so it's not too cool and white. This one I'll try and leave a gap, and perhaps paint the highlights afterwards. And then let's get a brush. So for the blues, I've got some ultramarine blue and a little bit of cerulean blue, just a tiny bit mixed in. Just trying to. I couldn't find my tray that I usually have here.
Oh, yeah.
So just sort of stretching over so we can see it. I'm sure I had it this morning as well. I've left it in the garage. Right, so that should do. So yeah, just a tiniest bit of water just to make the paint flow really. I don't want to over thin it and it turn into like a watercolour. So I can pop some of that in. I'm sort of working up to the edge of the white. And I'll do a little bit under this other cloud as well. I'm working my way around so that can go down to there. As I say, you could lighten this a little bit as you're coming down towards the horizon. Do a little bit on this other one. So the other thing with oil paint is the paint is quite a bit stiffer than watercolours or acrylics. And I tend to use these, well, I don't always use these bristle brushes. I either use bristle brushes, which are a little bit stiffer, or a slightly stiffer nylon brush. And that way I can mix the paint and push the paint around a bit easier. Right, I'm just going to leave a gap there. I'll make the grey bit there. So that can be that bit, and then I'll mix a grey with some blue and some brown. So I think it's burnt umber and ultramarine blue, I'm using that, and a little bit of white, a tiny bit of red, just a tiny bit of crimson or magenta. And I tend to like to mix the greys rather than use black and white, and get a more interesting range of greys that way. So you can have slightly warmer greys with more brown in there, or red in there. Or if you add more blue, you'll get a cool grey. So this is, yeah, just kind of really having to work that into the canvas a little bit. It's quite a strong grey. So that can be that one. And I'll add some slightly lighter grey in there in a minute. But while I've got that colour on my brush, I'll work a little bit in, just to leave a little bit of a gap. Hello. Did you manage to park? That was not sorry, but did you manage? Yeah, you managed to though, because it looks really chocker, didn't it?
Do you know, I was lucky, just as
Ah, good, yeah.
just as I came out, somebody came
Oh,
in.
that's good. So we looked a minute ago, it looked full, I was thinking, I wonder if you managed. Yeah, just doing a little oils demo, painting clouds. So that would be that one. And then you're just going to lighten up the grey a little bit in this area. Maybe a little bit more. Like that. And then to sort of soften the edges, sometimes I use my fingers. So you can do that sort of thing. Or just a dry brush. I'll do the same too, just on a dry brush. Got the rag here on it. So you can just kind of work into areas, and sometimes you'll lift a bit of paint off, so it's best to just kind of wipe the brush on a bit of rag or a bit of kitchen roll. And just soften areas out a little bit. This one, where I've left a gap, just put a bit in there. So that comes in there. I think in a way it might be easier to get the light bits on first, just because what you can end up doing is picking up the other colours and then the white gets contaminated. So the way I was taught was to go darker colours first, then lighter. But sometimes it can work better in reverse. So what I'm doing is, where I'm picking bits up, I'm just turning the brush around, so I've got a white in it. And then just wipe a bit of blue off, pick a bit more up. Just kind of soften out the brush, like that. And then sometimes I find painting some just slightly lighter bits into the clouds can be quite nice. Sort of working dark and then painting light into that. I quite like to do that sometimes. Sometimes can work quite nicely.
So, because with watercolours, we didn't use white.
That's
paint,
right, yeah.
But with oils, you can get away with.
It's like exactly the opposite
Yes.
technique. Yeah, completely different from what I told you last week. Yeah, just it's like forget everything you learned last week, and then this is the opposite way around. Really.
Yeah.
This I'm much more at home with this. This is I find much easier, and oils are very forgiving. You can really push the paint around. I think the thing is, you need to give it a good covering. What I tend to do is, I tend to sort of really, I don't thin the paint too much, but I really work it into the canvas or the board, so that it's not too thick a layer at a time. If I want to change bits, I can, if I've got like a clean brush and dry it, or I can sort of, I can wash areas out and lift them out with a bit of rag. So if I wanted to put another colour there, rather than go over the grey, it's easier to just, try and remove a little bit, and then I could go, whiter or lighter, and it worked quite well. So it is possible to remove bits, either scrape paint back or wipe it out.
Can you do that with ordinary oils?
Yeah, just with a bit of solvent and just scrape bits back. Yeah, you can lift. Sometimes I don't really do this very often now, but you could get a bit of rag and just kind of sort of scrape bits off like that. Just scrape it back. What I tend to do is just my really worn out brushes that are down to a stubble. They're quite good for. I've got on here. Yeah, something like that. I don't see that from there, but that started out as like a square brush. But it's really good because it's not so easy on the canvas, but on a bit of board, you can just scrape it around and lift bits out and just push the paint. And once I've got enough off, it's relatively easy to put a blob of you know, fresh paint to different colour over the top of that. So and this will stay wet a long time. You can go and have a break, you can come back, and then you could sort of blend areas. Whereas watercolours and acrylics, that's dried as soon as it hits the page really, or the paper. So for me, this is more relaxing. It can be difficult. And then because this is going to stay wet for a day or two, that painting is still wet. So I have to be careful how I carry them.
And you say you literally just sit and paint the scene, or would you sketch it with paint, you said?
Yeah, I do sketch it with painting. So say the one of the building there, I would have done something like, you know, I would have done a sketch.
But in paint?
But in paint, yeah, something a bit like that. Just kind of work out where the different bits are. Yeah. Just thin paint with that's where the worn out brushes are quite handy too, actually, because you've got a lot of control. It's a bit like pushing the pencil around. You could do it with a pastel pencil, but I just find that it's just as easy with the paint, really. So I tend to do that.
Yeah, Paul?
Yep.
Being new, I haven't done oils before.
Yeah.
But can you paint the colour over another colour?
Yeah, you can. You can either let it dry.
You wait for it.
So you can either let it dry, which can take a while. The other thing that's a bit odd about oils is some colours will dry a lot quicker than others. So whites will stay wet for a long time. Browns and blues tend to dry quite quickly. Yellows and reds are a bit slower. So they do have different drying rates.
And I didn't catch the beginning of your class.
That's okay.
Do I mix oils with water or not?
So these particular ones you can do. So some you can. So these ones are called, this range is Winter and Newton Artisan range. So these are like a water mixable, water soluble oil.
Oh.
And there are special mediums, if you want to use mediums with it, like oil, special oils will go with them. The other oils are solvent based, so the ones that Dawn's got, most of what Dawn's got is solvent based, aren't they?
I'll show you the ones that I've got.
Yeah, sure.
Around,
Yeah.
and then you can tell me, you know, what's what.
She's absorbed.
Yeah.
That's right. I was saying your oils are solvent based oils, aren't they?
I love
Yeah.
I saw this
They're all lovely. They're all lovely.
artist at National Portrait Gallery. He showed us all the different stages he had from the beginning to the end of his portrait.
Yeah.
And he kept blanking it out, and it was just amazing that you can totally just put black all over it and paint on the top again and again.
Yeah.
He kept wiping it, and he did so many alterations.
Yeah.
But she said oil is so forgiving.
It is. Yeah.
But it's long, complicated, messy as well.
Yeah.
But beautiful.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't ever use anything else.
Yeah. I mean, I it's such a, for me, it's the one I feel most at home with. But then I started with oils when I was little. I got given a little box of oils. And that's what I used.
No, I think it depends who you are and what you're doing.
I think it's what you get used to, actually.
Yeah.
You have more time to do something than you do with acrylics.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, we've got plenty here if you want to. This bit of canvas, we'll work out a way of dividing that up.
I think I like some scissors.
All right, let's stop that.